Welcome to this episode of the Big Apple's CoRe podcast, a CoreNet New York City podcast. I'm Courtney Grill. I'm currently the chair of marketing and communications for the CoreNet New York City chapter. And I'm also a business development director at Skanska USA Building. Today we have Susan Sly with us from Radius AI. Susan is the co-founder and co-CEO of Radius AI, which is an award-winning 9-figure valuation AI company. She also invests in Light Pink and BlackPal as well. And she is currently implementing technology for the Metaverse. Correct me if I'm wrong, Susan.
Yeah, we'll talk about that for sure.
Perfect. And then she's also been featured on CNBC, Fox, MarketWatch, Forbes. And she also happens to be a former professional athlete, a multi-marathon and Ironman competitor, as well as, in addition to juggling all of the business life, she also happens to be a wife, a mother to 5 children, as well as a grandmother. And Susan, you also mentioned you recently won an award for your firm.
We did. Thanks, Courtney. I'm so excited to be here. And if for those of you in New York, good morning, New York, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is. Yeah, we at Radius, we were nominated for VentureBeat's AI Innovator of the Year. And we were up against companies like Boston Dynamics and the innovation team at Ford Motor Company, which, Courtney, I mean, they, have got deep pockets. So I was in San Francisco, where, in the top 5, and I was sort of sitting at the back of the room, and I'm like, I don't know, the competition's really steep. And I'm a law of attraction girl, but I was like, oh, this is a tough one. And when they called our name, I was stunned. And really, the award wasn't just for Radius. In the United States, less than 2% of technology companies have at least one woman founder. And when it comes to funding, less than 2.5% of women-led pitches to VCs ever get funded. So, and then in the world of AI and computer vision, less than 10% of pilots ever go to production. So Radius is in that rarefied air in several categories. So grateful we won. And for those of you just hearing about us, we're just getting started. So it's fun. I'm having a great time.
That's great, Susan. I mean, this is really impressive, especially being kind of leading the charge for women in this industry. I also understand that you're kind of a mentor and coach to other women in this industry as well.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because I think as whatever the profession is that we are engaged in. So whether we're working for a firm or we're investing in real estate or technology or startups or whatever it is, at the end of the day, the question is, what are you a stand for? And in the world right now, or in the United States right now, we'll be a stand for a political party. We'll be a stand for a cause, but I'm like, can you be a stand for yourself, right? Who at the end of the day are you going to stand for? And so when I, actually my business coach, she said to me, Susan, if you're really going to do this, because I was semi-retired, I had built several companies and I was, didn't really have to work. I was kind of, go to yoga and then just volunteer at the kids' school. I could do whatever I wanted. And so she said, if you're really going to do this, what are you going to be a stand for? And I said, you know what, I'm going to be a stand for women in technology. And because we are the minority. And so knowing that every day when I get up and I say, okay, how can I be a stand for women in technology? And I had 2 women. Recently, I was speaking at a very large event for a massive multi-billion-dollar company. And I gave some self-effacing humor. I'm originally from Canada, so it's pretty common. And I had one of the SVPs come up and said, don't you ever do that again. And then one of my own employees, when I was nominated for an award for one of the top women in AI, I said, it I'm stunned and that they picked me. And she said, of course they did. Stop with the modesty. And so I've really even had to shift my own narrative, Courtney, about who I am as I show up. And I think that's it's a big thing for anyone. So who are you as a stand for you, and what gets you up in the morning? What keeps you going in the day? And what's the first thing you think about in the morning? The last thing you think about at night?
That's a great message for, I think, many of us, and a great reminder for many of us in our professions, especially I know myself working within the construction industry. So that's very helpful. Thanks, Susan. So I also wanted to just kind of go back to the basics. Being a technology investor, there's so much talk right now about the metaverse, but a lot of people don't really understand what the metaverse is. Can you give kind of a overview of what it is, so that our listeners can better understand?
Absolutely. So let's go back in the time machine. And the year is, circa 1992. And internet is kind of like, what is this internet thing? So I was one of the first business coaches on the internet with an e-commerce site in 1995. So I very quickly saw in the early 90s what the internet could be beyond a search engine. And for those people listening who are old enough to remember dial-up, right? So it's like you type in a query, it wasn't even that pretty, and it would just it was like you had this massive computer, it sounded like a ride-on lawnmower, and you just wait for like 5 minutes for the answer to come back. So back in the early 90s, there were people who said, oh, this internet thing, it's not going to replace the yellow pages. And for those of you who remember, we used to get big, huge, thick yellow pages dropped at our door, and you could use it like as a doorstop or, to stand on to pull something out of the cupboard. And, so that aspect of the confusion and what did it really mean, that's where we're at with the metaverse and Web3. So I'm also going to fast forward time a little bit to the year 2015. So in 2015, in around 2014, 2015, Facebook purchased a company called Oculus Rift. Oculus Rift is now Oculus Prime, which are the goggles that you use to access the metaverse. It's one of the ways to get in. And so they saw very quickly that the metaverse, this Web3 place, which it is, we all have to think of it as a place, that they saw that this was going to be a massive growth vertical for them. And if you want to dial it back in time, I just did a show on my own show, Raw and Real Entrepreneurship. We're in 141 countries. And I was just having this conversation with a guest who, he was like second in command to Jeff Bezos. He was like there for all of this, watching all of this take place, Silicon Valley, Titan. And so we're talking about what the plans were for Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse. So I want to say three things. Number one, Mark Zuckerberg does not own the metaverse. He may have changed the name of Facebook. The parent company is Meta. He doesn't own the metaverse. We can all access the metaverse without Facebook. Number two is that this isn't something new. This isn't something your kids are, trading in NFTs, or Gary Vee just had VCon and you could only get in with an NFT. This is not new. This has been years and years in the making. And the third thing is as I said in my speech to MIT in January, this technology is inevitable. So if something is inevitable, then why are you resisting it? Companies, Radius partners with NVIDIA. NVIDIA has massive metaverse plans. They produce GPUs that we use in our graphic processing units. They have servers just designed for metaverse technology. My friend is in charge of building the data center that is going to house Mark Zuckerberg's version of the metaverse. So the metaverse is a place. It is a place we access to do things. And those things are to entertain ourselves, to work, which is something I'm going to talk about, or to dissociate from reality in such a way that there is either a cognitive benefit or some kind of cognitive shift. And so Courtney, we can talk about one of my friends, Dr. Brenda Wiederhold. She is leading the way with metaverse technologies to heal soldiers from PTSD, people from depression. I pulled just, before we went into the show, I pulled the latest in the last 24 hours, the top 5 news pieces in the metaverse. We can talk about that. And we can also talk about the implications for real estate, because do you invest in it? Are you going to be in it? What does it look like? So that is a little bit about the metaverse. Where we are with the metaverse right now is, if you're old enough to remember, it's about 1992 with the internet. So by 95, 97, 3 to 5 more years, we're all going to be in the metaverse.
That's really interesting, Susan. I know most of our listeners are we all work in the corporate real estate field, providing some form of service or managing corporate real estate for large corporations. What does that mean? What does the metaverse mean for the workplace going forward?
That is a great question. So right now, as we know, the pandemic shifted what people want. And there's been a lot of, many articles. I sit on the Forbes Business Council, so I'm interviewed all the time by Forbes. There have been a lot of discussions, Gen Z is driving it, or millennials are driving it. It's actually not true. People like myself and Gen X are also driving it, because we have aging parents and we still have kids at home. And, it's convenient to have a hybrid workplace, to be able to work from home when we want, or if someone tests positive, a colleague for COVID, then we have to stay at home and self-isolate and do all these things, right? So I had said my vanguard opinion was, I was being interviewed by a colleague at Forbes, and my vanguard opinion is hybrid workplace isn't going anywhere. I know even at Radius, we have employees who sometimes come in, sometimes they don't come in. It doesn't matter. Their work is still getting done. We have real offices. So when you think about this with real estate, the pandemic changed the game. It is different now. I do not believe we are ever all going to be back in offices. And the companies that demand that their talent goes into an office are going to have a hard time finding talent. So that being said, we have to think of the metaverse as the third part of the hybrid workforce. Facebook is actually doing some of its internal meetings in the metaverse. So we have the physical office, we have the home office, we have the metaverse. The metaverse is an extension of the physical office. So the first implications we are going to see for work, it's already happening, is we would do this show in the metaverse. So you and I might be sitting down and, doing the show, and we could, broadcast, or we might have like our own avatars. So we go in, we are going to see a lot of HR issues as well. I'm not even kidding. So right now people are making a decision to be identify as whatever gender they want. What happens when people say, I want to identify as an animal? I want to identify as an inanimate object. And what are you going to do about it? Because this is the stuff that, attorneys, HR folks, they're going to have to start to think of. So if you have an employee who's like, well, I identify as a baby shark, are you going to tell them they can't show up to the meeting as a baby shark? Like, what are you going to do about it? So we have a whole series of implications. It's not just this fun thing. We're also going to see with these global work environments. So I have one of the teams that I run. We've got people in India, the Philippines. We have someone in Washington, someone in San Francisco, people in Phoenix, and people in our Bellevue office. So when we all meet, we meet on Zoom as ourselves. So what's going to happen is, initially it'll be through goggles that we get into the metaverse that we will meet there together, and we're working on, whiteboards and all sorts of things together. So as we begin to do this, understand as a real estate investor, there are some opportunities. So that's why prior to this economic downturn, this recession, we saw companies paying $10 million for a plot of land in Decentraland. A Canadian company did that. We see companies like Ralph Lauren buying space in Roblox. We see, so many companies like, Dolce & Gabbana doing NFT collections of clothing so you can dress your avatar in the metaverse in Dolce & Gabbana, and the collection sold out. And so people are saying, oh, this technology is dead. Okay, whoever is saying that, you need to give yourself a bit of a reality check and understand what drives technologies like the metaverse. Your kids or grandkids are playing Roblox, and you should just download the app and start playing so you understand. Your kids or grandkids understand what happens in Decentraland. So it doesn't matter if you want to embrace it or not. The next generation, Gen Alpha, is already there. They're playing video games with their friends, and their best friends are people they have never met, but they're friends with them in the metaverse because it all started in gaming. So it's here, it's happening. You know, you either, as I said, you either embrace it because it's inevitable, or you resist it as long as you can. And you can build a house out of moonwood in the backwoods of Montana, and that might be my default. I'm not even kidding.
That's so interesting, Susan. I think it definitely will be present a lot of implications. I mean, it would be fun to show up in a meeting as an animal, but also interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna show up as Lara Croft. Like, that's just it. Like, this is the meeting, and this is how I'm showing. No.
That's amazing.
But there's a lot of confusion, Courtney. Like, that's the
Right.
thing. There's a lot of opinion. There's a lot of confusion. It's no different than the stock market right now. So, you know, with the market being down 20+%,
Mhm.
and what sells news, Courtney? Good news or scary news?
Scary news.
Right.
And I mean, on that topic, you mentioned the stock market being down. People are starting to invest in the metaverse, as you mentioned. What type of ROI are people seeing? Are they seeing an ROI yet? What does that mean to invest in the metaverse?
So there are different ways to invest. One is to begin with NFT investment, but if you did that at the peak before the crypto correction, then you are likely very down, right? If
Mhm.
you are looking at investing in the metaverse, you might choose to buy land in the metaverse. I took out some very specific URLs, about 20 or 25 of them around metaverse technologies last year. So you might choose to go in and buy domains. Domains are still going to be a gateway for the time being. I don't think there's a lot of doom and gloom. I don't have Facebook in my portfolio, and I will disclaim this. I am not giving investment advice, but Facebook is a very wealthy company, and their play has been the metaverse for now, you know, we're talking 7+ years. They've known this was on the roadmap. So you know, if you choose to invest in the metaverse in that way, but there are many ways to invest. I do not personally think you are going to see a short-term ROI, but if you're a real estate investor, chances are you're looking for a long-term ROI. But you have to look at investing in land in the metaverse the way you would look at investing in real estate in the real world. And that is, so if you look at Decentraland as an example, they have this big prime shopping street. All of that real estate has appreciated, and it's all gone. So you can buy little pockets, you can even buy an apartment, you can buy all of these things. Singapore did a digital twin of its city. You are going to start to see cities doing digital twins. So it's an exact
Mhm.
replica. They use it for city planning. They may start to sell real estate in the digital twin. Where I think we are going to get to is a very interesting time, probably several decades from now, where people, as they're aging, will choose, especially people who don't have a lot of money, might choose to age in the metaverse. So their body, especially if their body's in some form of stasis, but their brain is living in the metaverse. And I think that is going to be a big growth area. I'm looking at metaverse technologies with medical implications, as I said, PTSD,
Mhm.
depression,
Right.
addiction is another one. And there are companies that are just startups that are starting to do that. So I have
Yeah.
friends that are looking at those technologies. Right now, for me, what I'm doing is I'm looking at the companies that are taking the land, or the companies that are doing the investing, and looking at potentially investing in the investing companies.
That's interesting. Yeah, I read an article earlier this week that CBS is starting to invest in the metaverse and is going to begin to offer non-emergency telemedicine services via the metaverse, which is fascinating.
Well, it's practical, right? So we know that for certain people, travel is not an option. We also saw that the pandemic separated families. I didn't see my dad for 2 years. He lives in another country. So there are a lot of practical implications. I don't think people should be afraid, but I also think there's a lot of hilarity to it. Like I just, in pulling these top 5 news articles, I started laughing. But if, when you're ready for those, I will tell you what they are.
Please dive in.
Well, let's start with Tinder. This is from The Verge. Tinder steps back from metaverse dating plans as business falters. So I'm just going to be real direct. This is already happening. People are hooking up in the metaverse and having amorous relations. The good news is in the metaverse, you're not going to get any form of physical disease if you have a hookup. I am vehemently against that, since I've been, with my husband for now, I don't know, 22 years or something. But Tinder steps back from metaverse dating plans. So I can promise you that that isn't necessarily about the metaverse. It might be about what's going on with Tinder, but it wouldn't surprise me. Over at Bumble, the Whitney is a genius, and she has a lot of really smart women investors. I think Serena Williams is an investor. Priyanka Chopra Jonas is an investor. So I think metaverse dating is going to be a thing. Insider higher ed, college in the metaverse is here. Is higher ed ready? Of course it should be. My son, he's on the autism spectrum. And for some kids, especially those who might have social challenges, metaverse learning is going to make a lot of sense. For people from foreign countries who want to study at US universities, metaverse learning is going to make a lot of sense. It's here. Just get over it. It's happening. All right. ESPN Premier League champions Man City unveil new third kit on Roblox in the metaverse. So metaverse gaming, like esports, is going to be a huge thing. You are going to see digital twins of your favorite sports teams. I can't wait. Go New England Patriots for you guys. All right. Fortune. Anything Zuckerberg creates now will misfire. Ethereum creator dumps cold water on Zuckerberg's Web3 dreams. The Ethereum creator says it's too early to judge what metaverse users will really want. Anything Facebook creates now will misfire. So people can be wrong. And I'm not saying that I know more than the creator of Ethereum, because, I'm not saying I do. However, I will go back in time. I had a financial advisor, and Facebook was doing its IPO. And I was like, I want to invest in Facebook. He's like, Facebook is never going to make any money. It would just be worthless for you. They don't have a business model. It's free users. And you have to be a visionary to understand. Facebook at one point had 2 billion users. The ad revenue was significant. It became one of the wealthiest companies. So if you had invested in the IPO, you would have been, Facebook rich, living, with a small investment, in a mansion in Puerto Rico by now. So I'm just saying not everyone's right. I think that Facebook is undergoing a big restructure. I think you've seen a shift. Cheryl's left. Things are shifting going on over there, but I have it on very good authority that their metaverse plans are strong. And when you look at, again, what NVIDIA is doing, what other companies are doing, Courtney, no, it's not going anywhere. Lastly, today, how the metaverse is changing the way people attend church. I think this one is really cool. Our family goes to church every Sunday, but I'm going to tell you, sometimes dragging all my kids there, or, I'm like, oh, I don't, I would love to stay in my pajamas today, but I still want us to have that church experience. So I think we're going to see places of worship. We're going to see schools. It is, on the front end right now, glasses are expensive. We're going to start to see the glasses come down. We're going to start to see other ways to access the metaverse. I can tell you, I'm really excited about it. With crypto, with blockchain. Yes, we are in a downturn. Are we at the bottom of the market? I don't know how to read the charts in crypto like I do in the stock market, but I would say if you do look at the charts and you do look at the last significant corrections, a lot of my friends who invest in crypto, they're buying right now. So I think I would just say to everyone, go out and do your research, pay attention to the news, talk to your kids and grandkids. They probably know more about the metaverse than you do.
That's so fascinating, and it really seems to touch almost every aspect of life now. You mentioned earlier the different metaverse platforms. Is there a way to find out what kind of platform specializes in what, or what platform you want to be in? Do you envision people using multiple platforms for different aspects of their life, work, home, socialization, whatnot?
That's a great question. And I've been thinking beyond that. I've been thinking about metaverse passports. So if I want to go to Singapore, so let's do a practical application. So you and I are sitting in a bar in New York, and we're like reliving a SATC moment, and we're having cosmopolitans, and we're like, let's go on a girls' trip, and we want to go to Singapore. But before we invest in a $20,000 first class ticket and, staying at the Mandarin Oriental or wherever we're going to stay, we decide, hey, let's go to the metaverse version of Singapore and see how we like it. So we do. And it doesn't really cost us that much. And in fact, we say, we're just going to go back and hang out at my house and get some girls, and we're going to go on a girls' trip in the metaverse to Singapore. And then we're like, we've had that experience. Do we really want to go? Right? That stuff is 100% going to happen. So the reason I bring that up with regard to your question, we're going to have the digital twins of places. The other place I see that is going to make a ton of money is, so I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, because I fired winter. I'm originally from just north of upstate New York, but the Super Bowl, we're hosting Super Bowl 2023. I love the Super Bowl. I love NFL football. I love my living room, and I like my premium wine, that not the crappy wine at the stadium. So could I go to the Super Bowl in the metaverse, and I might pay like for a premium metaverse ticket, I might pay like, I don't know, $250. Last time I went to the Super Bowl, Courtney, I had like great tickets. I paid $10,000 ticket for my husband and I. So we are going to see that stuff happen. So it's going to sports games, it's going to cities, it's going to countries, it's going to venues. So to answer your question, we will, just like in the real world, that's where it will start. With places like Decentraland or Roblox, which is based on the game, we're seeing companies. I saw the CEO of Ralph Lauren speak at National Retail Federation this year. Revlon has a whole metaverse, division where, Target, Walmart took out several patents on the metaverse. So these retailers are buying land in these metaverse places, some in Roblox, some in Decentraland, and creating digital twins of products. But the digital twin of the product has cool superpowers. So my mascara doesn't really do anything except lengthen my eyelashes, but my Revlon mascara in, say, Roblox, it shoots flames out of my lashes, which is cool in my, avatar, right? So what companies are betting on is that we are going to have engagement with their products in the metaverse and then want to buy them in the real world. So we will go to certain places for certain experiences. That's ultimately how it's going to be. Just like on streaming, right? So like we have Hulu. I just got Discovery Plus. I wasn't going to get it, but it was like my 16-year-old was like, oh, but Shark Week. And I'm like, I love Shark Week. Damn it. So I got that. We have Disney Plus. We have every streaming service. I'm paying more for that than I was the cable. It's like, it'll be the
Absolutely.
same thing for the metaverse. It'll be subscription because that's where the money is, and you'll have subscription service to access it. That's what I predict.
That's fascinating. Right now, is it subscription based or?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So if you want
fascinating.
like you can access certain things. Like I could go buy land in Decentraland today. I could sign up for a free Roblox account, like anything, but it's not going to be as fun as the paid version.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
So a lot of the members of CoreNet work in kind of architecture and design and construction. I know the construction and architecture industry has been seeing AI for quite a few years now, with the use of BIM and being able to walk through, using the goggles to walk through project sites before they're even constructed. What do you think this means overall for the future of the design and construction market, though?
It's funny you should mention that, because in Radius, we do predictive models with store layouts, right? So our company does computer vision at the edge. So we're integrating into existing security cameras, and we're not using facial recognition. We choose not to, but we're, heat mapping, like where are people going? And then we take that model, and based on the past data, we can actually predict where they're going. We can optimize flows. We can go back to our clients, our enterprise level clients, and say, if the store layout was like this behavior would happen. So what we're going to see is we're going to see a combination of the use of artificial intelligence. So I'll explain two implications there, and then combined, so creating machine learning models that will do predictive. So you have your goggles, and we can say, oh, the office space we have for Radius in our Tempe office, we did walk through, with BIM. It was fully under construction. It's still under construction. We're there, but there I was like, oh, okay, that's where this common area is going to be. That's where, and it was cool, right? So we're going to see these two things marry. Let me give you an example, like a real world example for real estate, for commercial real estate, and for construction. Let's say I was going to rebuild Grand Central Station, and I got the contract to do that. And after I celebrated and I had, some amazing champagne, and I'm like, okay, now what? They want my design plan. So imagine if I could take those existing security cameras, and I could use a company like Radius to aggregate data from the movement of people. And then I say to Radius, can you create a predictive model? And then I go in there and I start to move things around, and then I can still see where the people are going to go. They'll look like little dots or whatever. And then I use the, technology readily available, and I create my design based on data and traffic flow. And then I implement it. And then when I'm presenting it, I say, look, when it looks like this is what's going to happen. And so we're going to see a marriage of AI and machine learning and metaverse technologies. And we're starting to see that now. So even at Radius, for our lead client, we do that. We do predictive patterns to tell them how to optimize their locations. And they own their real estate. They don't rent it. So it allows them to make choices. So we, in addition to working with their sales and marketing team, we work with their store design. Another thing we do that is really sort of futuristic is we are able to do gaze models, Courtney. So we can determine where people are looking and how long they're looking. So did they look at Coke, but actually buy Pepsi? Did they pick up a Revlon mascara and then put it down? And so when you combine a gaze model with real estate, you can predict very accurately how that person is going to interact with what it is you're creating. And that is really, really cool. And I think in the next iteration of real estate, we're going to see metaverse rooms. So there will be specialized rooms where people can go in and they'll sit in their little pod, and that's where they go to have their metaverse meetings. So lots of cool things that are happening.
Absolutely. That is fascinating. I'm excited to personally use it more in both my professional and my personal life. I know we're kind of nearing the end of this recording, but I wanted to just ask you a few rapid fire questions, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Um, if you could go back and tell your 18-year-old self one thing, what would you say?
Love this question. That's a great question. Whoops. Don't stop coding. So when I left home when I was 15 and I put myself through a 4-year degree, which I did in 3 years. And during my degree, I was coding and we were working on early facial recognition technology. And then I graduated in 1992 and I bought into this limiting belief that I wasn't techie, and I was dating a guy who's like, I'll just build the website for you. I'll just do it. And I was really curious and fascinated about it. And I stopped coding and I told myself I wasn't techie. And yet here I am now about to turn 50 as the co-CEO of a technology company, right? So I would have just said, Susan, don't believe that and just stay with technology, keep coding and keep, make sure you keep those skills up.
I personally wish I knew how to code. So that's great advice.
I still don't, Courtney. But some of my staff, they code in like 14 languages. It's crazy. Yeah.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
So you have had a very impressive career. You've been involved in many things. Name one interesting fact about yourself, though.
My first job out of university, I was a men's maximum security prison guard. So I was bilingual. I had a science degree. They really wanted their version of diversity was hiring women. There weren't a lot of women. So I was hired. And because of my background, I could choose whatever post I wanted. So I, of course, chose the hardest one, which was men's maximum security. One of my units looked like Silence of the Lambs. So it was like these big wooden doors. And then behind that was plexiglass. Behind that was bars. So the inmates used to throw stuff at me. I had special skills. So I was trained, hand-to-hand combat, weapons, all of this stuff. And so I envisioned that I would have gone to work at Quantico to catch bad actors. And that was like my big dream. But that was my first job out of college.
I would have never have guessed that as your first job out of college. That's definitely a career pivot from there.
Well, I think, it's so funny. I think God was preparing me for that because in technology, I'm often the only woman in the room. And so when I was a men's maximum security prison guard, I would be bringing in 100 inmates from the yard on the floor by myself with no weapons, doing pat downs, metal checks and all of that stuff. So I think there was this foreshadowing of preparing me for that in a certain way. And it's so funny because in a lot of meetings, like afterwards, guys will be like, you have this aura about you. Like, I just wouldn't mess with you. And I'm like, thank you. I appreciate that.
It sounds like it definitely prepared you.
Yeah, it was fun.
We just went over some of the latest headlines regarding the metaverse. But what is one thing that sparked your interest in the industry news recently?
I'm following so much like the people who are saying, crypto is dead, it's not going to be used. A lot of the people saying that are the same people who underestimated the Reddit group, that really drove stocks like AMC and GameStop. The thing I would say is, we can all have an opinion, but never underestimate the power of the people. And, I love people. I love to see the best in people. And when you have everyday folks who have put $50 in Dogecoin or $50 in Shiba Inu, or they're, they last year were putting their $50 in AMC or GameStop, and we're not talking about 100 people. We're talking about millions of people. I was having a business lunch the other day, Courtney, and just for fun, I was at like the end of the table. I was like, okay, confession. How many of you have crypto? Okay, everyone. And how many of you own a meme stock? And like one of these guys, a data scientist, like, I do. And then this guy to the right of me was an engineer. He's like, I do. And I'm like, right. And it's so funny. Even, one of my friends, Mark Devine, he wrote 5 New York Times bestsellers. I've had him on my show a couple of times. He's Seal Fit guy. Mark has a massive crypto portfolio. We're having lunch one day in San Diego. And I'm like, okay, how much Shiba Inu do you own? I'm not going to disclose his portfolio. And he's like, how much do you own? Right. So when we see Elon Musk, and we have to understand crypto ties into blockchain, which ties into the metaverse because cryptocurrency is the currency in the metaverse. That when we see people like Elon Musk who can tweet about Doge, or Mark Cuban who says, okay, at Mavericks games, you can use Doge. When we see this influence of entrepreneurs or celebrities over something that is a currency, that is, that to me, that's what I'm following the most. It's not so much which land is going to win. Is Roblox going to win? Is Decentraland going to win? At the end of the day, it might be something we've never heard of, right? Like who still uses AOL? If you're still using AOL, God love you. I don't know what to say. But when it was AOL versus Yahoo, right? And now no one uses that. We all use Gmail. So my point being is getting engaged so much in which land is it going to be might not be the right place. Start back a bit and educate yourself on cryptocurrency and the blockchain. That I think that's for me, the thing I look at a daily basis.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It sounds like I need to kind of have some reading up to do on cryptocurrency investment a little bit more.
I just did a show and it just got released, and the guy is the guy from JP Morgan, and he just walks you through crypto in a way that's very tangible, it's smart, and it's very basic. He talks about, crypto, blockchain, and wallets, and it's a great show. So it's a great place to start.
Thank you for the recommendation. Well, Susan, this wraps up this episode of the Big Apple's CoRe podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time, and hope to chat again soon.
Well, thanks so much, Courtney. It's been great to be here. And, any questions about the metaverse, just tweet at me or whatever. It's Susan_Sly. For some reason, I didn't get the Susan Sly. Someone took that one many years ago when I joined Twitter. But I answer all my own tweets. My team answers a bunch of other stuff for me, but Twitter is kind of my place right now. I'll say that right now. We'll see. But anyway, it's been great to be here.
Maybe you might move to the metaverse.
Well, we'll see what Elon's going to do when he finally does buy Twitter, if that happens.
Thanks, Susan.
Thanks.